Voters in a dozen cities and states went to the polls on Tuesday to vote on everything from city mayor to state governor. But rights groups warn many faced requirements to prove their identity that did not exist a year ago. In Missouri, an amendment to the state constitution required voters to present proof of identity before casting a ballot. Voting rights advocates said the measure, passed by referendum last year, caused confusion at the polls. "We have people at the polls in this state conducting exit surveys, asking voters about what kind of information they received about this new law, and we're seeing that a lot of people are greatly uninformed," said Denise Lieberman, a senior attorney at the National Office of the Advancement Project, a civil rights organization. "When people don't know how to navigate new rules, they are confused, they are intimidated, and they stay home," Lieberman told Al Jazeera. Other states to pass laws making it more difficult to vote in the past year include Arkansas, Iowa, North Dakota, Texas, and New Hampshire. But efforts to restrict voting rights are not new to 2017. Articled at some point to a wave of measures restricting access to the ballot, which disproportionately affected Democratic-leaning voter in the lead-up to the 2016 presidential election as an explanation for Donald Trump's surprise win. Yet, 1 year later, voting rights advocates say that attempts to limit the franchise have only intensified and are being backed by the current administration. "There's certainly more energy behind them, and you have this sad and unfortunate federal government imprimatur on the top of them," said Ronald Newman, Director of Strategic Initiatives at the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU. Whereas 2 years ago or 4 years ago, when a state made moves to restrict access to the ballot, you had the federal government coming in through the Department of Justice, through the Civil Rights Division saying, "Hey, stop this," Newman told Al Jazeera. "Well, you've seen a big slip on that front. Moves by the Trump administration. The Trump administration has supported claims that voter fraud is rampant. Articulated such arguments are usually offered as a justification for tougher registration and identification requirements." After winning last year's election, Trump tweeted that his margin of victory would have been larger if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally. The president formed an advisory commission on electoral integrity after claiming, without evidence, that 3 to 5 million illegal votes had been cast in the 2016 election. Headed by Vice President Mike Pence, the commission has sought to collect voter data from states, which civil rights groups fear the administration could misuse to validate claims of widespread illegal voting. If the commission has large amounts of data and it uses that information in a way that does not represent sound methodology, they could substantially overestimate or overstate the extent of illegal voting, said Jonathan Brader, Democracy Counsel at the Brennan Center, a public policy institute that opposes voter ID laws. For example, the commission could overestimate double votes by matching voters only by first name, last name and date of birth, which produces large numbers of false matches, Brader said. Trump's Department of Justice, DOJ, has signaled that it might pressure states to purge voter rolls. States are responsible for maintaining lists of eligible voters, removing residents who die, move away or otherwise become ineligible to vote. Research by conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch has indicated that millions of ineligible voters remain on state rolls. The Dodge sent states a letter last summer inquiring about voter roll maintenance practices. Articulated but purges are often sweeping and clumsy, voting rights advocates say, and remove large numbers of legitimate voters. When states and local jurisdictions conduct voter purges without the appropriate safeguards, they can sweep up large numbers of eligible voters, who can then be removed from the rolls without the proper notification and waiting period, said Brader. This can then result in disenfranchisement when they show up to the polls only to find that they have had their voter registration cancelled. The Trump administration has also intervened in legal disputes over individual state voter ID laws, as it did recently on behalf of Texas. After a federal judge ruled against the latest version of Texas's voter ID law, the Dodge threw its support behind the law, which requires voters to show identification.